news.
While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow, 508-996-0500. So just to put a pin on that conversation about the CPA, the potential CPA repeal for now, the current situation is that ballot question passed 7-3. You need 8 votes for a veto override. And Councilor Avery, who wasn't at that meeting, talked to us the next day, Chris and I, and said he would not vote to put that ballot question on. So right now, for that specific ballot question, there is not a veto-proof majority. I said before, I hope that maintains, and I actually hope it's expanded to really hammer home the point that you can't just whimsically put these major ballot questions, because this came out of nowhere. There's no record opposition on this. There's no any public statements from anybody opposing this program. It just appeared on the ballot after some pretty bad, some pretty bad PR for the last few months from the city council and the city council president in particular on, the pay raises she proposed. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And so you can't govern that way. It's harmful to your constituents. So I hope I think that people, the 4 counselors at least that voted against it now realize already voted against it, realized that in their neighborhoods there's a lot of investment that's been made with CPA money, and they want that investment to continue. And in the city, there's been a lot of investment in CPA money, and they want that investment to continue. There's people that support the CPA that still voted for that question. It doesn't make any. That to me, that doesn't make sense. Again, I've sat on CPA committees. I've been an elected official. You really gotta do a risk assessment when you're proposing something like that, and see the consequences. By the way, I was asking if Norm from Cheers was an interior decorator. It was a question I had. Not bad from Oak Bluffs. I do want to give him credit for following up on this. Norm previously served in the U.S. Coast Guard, though in an earlier episode he stated he had been in the Army. He spent a few years as an independent accountant, eventually becomes a house painter. Okay, so I guess I wasn't entirely right on that. He wasn't an interior decorator. I was more of a Frasier guy myself. I think Frasier's the greatest spin-off show of all time. So, anyway, 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. But, I was thinking about this just philosophically, right? And these non-binding ballot questions. And I see for Council Burgo's point, I understand it, and I appreciate a lot of the issues that Council Burgo's raised on the front of housing, and I like the home group, and with Carlisle's, they do a lot of great work, and they're having people from HUD come down. He's done a lot of good work on housing, and now he's working on accessory dwelling units. And I understand and appreciate wanting to start that conversation, saying, like, this rent control question has absolutely started a conversation here, right? Not just state here, but statewide. This has been picked up by statewide news outlets, this proposal by Councilor Burgo. But it's definitely supercharged the conversation locally in the South Coast. So it's hard to say that it's, a waste of time, or it could be doing something else. But I do think that if you believe in something, you're an elected official, you believe in something strongly, you have to, there's something to be said about listening to your constituents and responding, right? But if your constituents also elect you, not to just pass policies that they like, but to do the research and to be well-studied and to know the issues and to come to a solution based on the knowledge that you have. You're probably elected because you have that knowledge already. And so I do understand and appreciate using your position and trying to propose a question that will move the needle, at least move the conversation forward. But I do think there's something to be said about if you want something done and you're in a position of power, do it. Start filing the bills. And I think with respect to the CPA, because again, I think these, the concern would be the phrasing of the question, right? Not just the phrasing of the question, but, the phrasing of the question, whether or not some elected officials will mislead people on what the CPA does. But just because the majority of your constituents, they say, hey, you should do this, you should repeal the CPA, does not mean you have to do it either, right? If you believe in something and you know something works, I think you stand on your principles, right? You stand on your principles and say, hey, I think this is going to work, I'm going to try it. There's obviously time and space for listening to constituents and doing the work that they ask you to do. And I think in a lot of areas, but when it comes down to the complex policy solutions, right, to problems, you are relied upon to know more than your constituents do about policy. And so if you believe in something strong enough, if you believe in something strongly enough, what's the point of doing a poll? If you really feel as though this is the strongest solution, this is the best way forward, what's the point of a poll question? And if you really feel strongly that this a particular program helps people, helps a lot of people, helps your constituents, what's the point of a poll question? To see whether or not you should keep it. You know it helps, right? You know it helps people. You know that millions of dollars gets invested in your community that otherwise would not get invested if this program didn't exist. So what's the point of a poll question? You have the knowledge. You're elected because you have the knowledge, and you get paid to learn to obtain that knowledge. So what's the point? I think you, in certain circumstances, of course, listening to your constituents is important, but you have to take a principled stand. And the reason I bring that up is that if you're against the CPA being repealed, don't vote for that ballot question. Don't risk that program by giving the opposition any validity, by allowing them to enter the public forum based on things that you know fundamentally aren't true. It doesn't make any sense. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. So that's kind of like, I mean, if you have any questions or comments on it anymore, we'll definitely hear from you. But that's sort of how I feel in the situation. By the way, just coming up this week, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll is going to be joining Chris and I on Thursday, 8 o'clock. I'm really excited to talk to her. This will be the first time she's been on the program as the Lieutenant Governor. She has been on the program as obviously the candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the primary and the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing about the work that the administration is doing in housing and asking her how she's going to help, how her and Governor Healy are going to help this community down here in the South Coast find solutions to the housing woes that are leading us to these conversations. Now, one of the things I know that they are working on is creating a cabinet-level department, a housing secretary. In their budget, I think they do want to add to the HDIP funding, which we talked about earlier with Paul Chase. So we're going to ask her about that. We're going to ask her about some other things, and so I'm really looking forward to that conversation because it's not just a local issue; it is a statewide issue. That's why we're seeing in Boston the rent control bill or rent stabilization home rule petition that is before the State House now. And again, just to clarify, if New Bedford were to move forward, or any community around here, Fall River, Fairhaven even, were to move forward with a rent stabilization or rent control law, they would need to go through the home rule petition process. So it would need to be passed by the legislative body, which would, either be the town meeting or, would be town meeting or a city council. It would need to be signed by the executive branch, which would be select board or mayor. And then it would have to go to the State House and it would have to be voted on there. It would have to pass both chambers of the State House, the Senate and the House, and be signed by the governor. So that's the situation the Boston home rule petition is handling right now. They passed the council with an 11-2 vote. By the way, crazy to me that Boston only has 13 city councilors in a city that's got 700,000 people. But anyway, an 11-2 vote went to Michelle Wu's desk. She signed it. It's now before the State House. It is my understanding, just based on what's been reported, that it's going to be a bit of a heavy lift. And by a bit of a heavy lift, I mean it seems unlikely that it's going to pass the State House. And this is for, I think, the last time, and this was 3 years ago, so I think there's probably been a little bit more positive momentum in the direction towards supporting rent control than the opposition. But the last time rent control was on the ballot was, last time rent control was on the ballot was voted on in the State House was 2020 during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. And 23, I think, reps voted in favor of it. So it's going to be a bit of a heavy lift. I think there's probably been some more momentum towards a rent control, proposal, but I don't know I'm unsure if leadership is going to move on it. And I'm unsure if there is even a majority of state reps or state senators that would vote to pass that ballot question, especially knowing the impact it would have statewide, right? Knowing the impact it would have statewide. So if the Boston home rule petition dies, it's going to be difficult to, I think it will be difficult. I think that's the real barometer, right? Is if the Boston home rule petition dies, it's going to be really difficult to justify moving forward in a city like New Bedford or Fall River or anywhere, because that's where all the momentum would be in Boston. If Boston passes it, then I think it's a domino effect. Then I think you're going to see a lot of cities start passing rent control. But this ultimately has to be done at a state level. I think if you're going to do this, I think it's a state level solution. 508-996-0500. I'm going to take a break. Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. I mean, we've been just talking over the last few days about the rent stabilization ballot question that was proposed by Councilor Burgo and some of the, just the conversation on it more broadly. But one of the reasons this came up is because it's something that's been, it's something that's been implemented in states and cities. Oregon, I think, is one of the more recent communities to adopt rent stabilization. Oregon's one of the most recent states to adopt rent stabilization. But one of the reasons it's being discussed here is because, in Boston, Mayor Wu proposed a rent stabilization. The thing is that rent control is an easier thing to say. So it's fewer syllables, but basically, what Mayor Wu said, her proposal is it's going to end up being a 7 or 8% cap on rent increases. And she said most landlords across the city, and this has been what's said here, most landlords across the city are decent human beings taking care of their tenants and who know that it's their financial interest to have stable tenants. But she also said, she also said there are some that are, and I think she's referring more to the big, more institutional landlords that are not in that category. And so one of the things, she was saying is that right now, I think that there's also, I think tenements are excluded in this, and I believe there is a market reset. And I think most rent control and rent stabilization have market reset. So when that place becomes unoccupied, you reset the rent at whatever whatever the market price is, and then you go from there. So you're not affixed to that. Like when it's reopened, you can raise that rent to wherever you want it, within the market, and then the rent stabilization would kick in once the tenant's there. 508-996-0500. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Marcus.
What's up?
I've heard, I think you may have hit on something, but I want to ask you, first of all, you're a liberal, okay? Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel? What are your thoughts on rent control? Are you for it or against it? Or stabilization, whatever we want to call it?
I definitely think it's a policy worth exploring, to be honest with you. The thing is, obviously it can't be done in lieu of other solutions. There still needs to be an improvement on housing stock and all that. But, I think it's fair to say in New Bedford and other cities across the Commonwealth that there are large institutional landlords that are jacking up rents to the tune of 100%.
And those are the ones you're going to be more worried about than the mom and pop guy that owns a couple of properties or something like that. I think the mom and pop guy, just my feeling, might have more heart than all greed. Greed is good.
Yeah.
As they said in Wall Street,
Yeah.
And I think that's. But I think you may have hit on something else too, when you said that they're going to. Mayor Wu's bringing this up to, the State House. Now, I don't know how they're going to handle this, but I think the state is going to tell you how this is going to be handled. Maura Healey's a liberal. She went down to the border and, give out maps, as they say, to how to get to Massachusetts. So once you get these people here and they're competing with the people that are already here for housing, you got to come up with a plan. And maybe Maura Healey has a plan.
Maybe she does.
And again, I think the plan might go along with what Wu was saying a while back, that the problems that she had with mass cats and everything is a regional problem. Maybe from regional, we're going to go to statewide, and it'll be a statewide problem. And as Barry Sylvia, I believe, was on before, pointed out, we do have a lot of mills down here, and maybe the mayor will have this shoved down his throat,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that...
And I don't think he wants that,
Yeah, and I just think... I think immigrants are like a soft target for this. I mean,
okay, all right, that's fine.
If the stock is bad, the stock is bad. They've been when Paul Chase was at, he said we've been advocating for this for 10 years. He didn't say, well, because we've got an influx of people pouring over the border.
So pointed out to you, there is stock down here if you turn some of these large factories into living quarters. Obviously, they did that with Cliff Tex. Cliff Tex has become a living quarter. You know what I'm talking about, Cliff Tex, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's a place. I know there was some talk too about the Chamberlain building, and where it's got close proximity to the new railroad coming down here.
Yeah. That
might be a place as well. So I got a feeling that even though the mayor might look forward to gentrifying New Bedford, maybe Mayor Wu's problem, being a regional problem, might become more than that and be a state problem. And, hey, New Bedford's got these old factories, 100 of them. Let's give some developer money and incentive to take all those people there and send them down to the end of the line here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think Healey's come out against rent control or stabilization. Let's say limitations on rising rent, right? As a statewide policy solution, but said that municipalities can decide if they want. Now, here's my thing with that. I think that's a pretty easy way to kick the can to the legislature, right?
Oh yeah.
And just to say, well, it may never reach your desk. Right. So so it's to say, oh, well, you municipalities, you cities like New Bedford and Fall River and wherever, you can write your little home rule petitions and they can go to the State House and then they can just die there. And so then she can say, well, they can do what they want, but then the State House doesn't have to take any action on it. And, she could say, oh, well, I'm for it if they're for it. I think that's an easy out for her.
Well, she's established a housing department too, hasn't she?
Well, she's working on that. And again, we've got Kim Driscoll on.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking with her.
To see what you ask her. The other thing I wanted to point out to you too, though, they told Middleborough too that they were supposed to put some housing near the train. Okay.
Yeah.
And Middleborough doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, so there's that MBTA housing law that says you've got to let your zoning, because Paul Chase talked about this earlier, you got to let your zoning, you've got to make zoning around these MBTA stations, you've got to make them less restrictive.
Yeah.
So you have to foster an environment for growth in MBTA housing.
Yeah, and
but
again, to put it all off on the cities, maybe Middleborough, there'll be some pressure to do what they've said about, the MTA and having some, housing around the rail,
I mean, listen, I agree. I think actually that communities, that New Bedford, Fall River communities, Taunton communities have to really pull their weight in terms of getting housing, getting more housing options available, and not just senior housing. Like Fairhaven, like you said, I think you've brought it up before. Fairhaven's got all this new housing stock, but it's all senior housing. Like
Yes,
we have to
it is.
have housing for that's, and it's great to help seniors find a housing that they can afford and they can live in.
Obviously.
But we also got to think beyond that as well.
Well, yeah, because you've got seniors competing with the poorer, competing with the new immigrants that have come over. So there's a lot of competition here, and I think you might see an attempt by Governor Healy to help Michelle Wu and make it a regional and a statewide problem. Maybe cities and towns will be told you're going to have to create so much housing here. We do have a lot of money, and so you get some developers and.
Well, that's what it'll be interesting to see, because one of the proposals I know that they're working on is improving is adding more to that HDIP funding to try to incentivize more development. So and it's one of the main points that they're bringing up, and so I think there's stuff in the budget too. It's a $52 billion budget. So so I'm excited to hear from Lieutenant Governor Driscoll about everything we're talking about.
Program. It certainly will. But I to tell you the truth, in my lifetime, I'm an older person. I never ever thought this would ever happen in our country or in our state, that we'd have a problem with getting people housing and stuff. It really baffles me, that it's come to this, and I think one of the things you got to guard against is the corporate people that are buying up housing and pushing up the rates. Just because of greed. As they said in Wall Street, greed is good. Well, maybe it's not good. I don't think you believe it's good, Marcus.
Gordon Gekko went to jail at the end of that movie, right?
Yeah, I know. But that was just a movie.
That's why it's just a movie, because he actually went to jail.
This is real life, actually. But again, it is a conundrum. It is a problem. Yeah. And I got a funny feeling that when it gets up to Boston with the Wu petition, I have a feeling that Maura Healey will in some way try to tackle this. It's a Herculean task that she's undertaken, but you can't tell people.
I think she just hot potatoed it, but we'll see if she evolves on the issue.
Well, again, you can't tell people from the border to come up here to Massachusetts, and we get all the programs and all the nonprofits to help you, and then you offer them nothing, and put them in competition with the elderly and the people that are already here for the housing we have left. Again, I think your friend Barry Seward brings out a good point. We do have a lot of old factories here, and Cliff Decks has been turned over. And even some of our older schools, I don't think we got 100 of them, but that's been done too down at South End, I believe, with the Donaghy School. That was the Donaghy School off Rivet Street there years ago. Yeah, that's been converted a while back. So there are people that know how to do this and have been successful doing it. And I believe the old where Kenyon Campbell used to be, I think that was a Catholic school at one time. That's been converted to housing too. Okay, right. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Holy Name's been converted to housing.
Linden Street there, on Linden Street near Linden.
Okay.
Linden Pizza. That place there used to be Kenyon Campbell Business School years ago. I believe originally it was a Catholic school there. Right. So that it's been done, and it's not that it hasn't been done. But. I see more project living, if you want to call it that. After all, I guess we did do it after World War II when all the vets came home. Yeah. That's why you've got Bay Village, and that's why you've got Presidential Heights, and that's why you've got Blue Meadows and the South End. So it has been done, you know, and people lived there. And I know in my lifetime moved out of there and got homes and the cities and towns around the area and progressed. Out of the project.
Well, that's the thing again. It's why Fairhaven, Dartmouth, Freetown, etc., has to work on this issue as well.
Well,
yeah, I know. I get it.
It's interesting. I know it is interesting, but and I probably won't live to see how it works out. But what can I say? Again. This is going to be your problem, Marcus.
I know. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Friend. Take care. Yep.
508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hey, how you doing, Marcus?
Good.
The last caller just kind of pointed out something about Wall Street. What people don't realize, last year, 1 out of 7 homes in the United States of America was bought by Wall Street.
Right.
1 out of 7 homes. And they predict by 2030 40% of the housing stock will be owned by Wall Street. And they're not out there flipping. They're holding.
Yep.
And if they're going to control the supply,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? There goes the prices. I mean, they're going to control the market. So that's the number one thing that people don't even realize what's happening right under there. You know, ever since the financial crisis, I mean, there's Bank of America, you know, they had countrywide loans. They had thousands and thousands and thousands of homes that were foreclosed on, were just sitting there empty. Because they didn't want to flood the market with too many homes. So they just put in holding off, and the market goes up. They just making money just sitting there. But now these big investment guys come in there and they just buy blocks of, hey, you know, today we're going to buy $2 billion worth of real estate today. You know, and they just buy these big blocks and they control the market, you know. And we might not see it too much locally, but I you know, it's happening. So, I mean, and these people, again, displaced all over the place. So,
yeah,
you know.
I think everybody always singles out BlackRock, right, as one of the...
BlackRock, exactly, yeah. That's the, you know, the Innovation Homes is another one. Right. But, yeah, BlackRock is one of the top ones. I think they had like 100,000 homes under their wing. But, you know, locally, though, you know, I'm in the business. And what I see is this city just needs to be a little bit pro-business.
Sure.
You know, it's sad to say, because I love the city. I was born here. I raised my family here. I decided to invest here. I could have easily just walked off and gone somewhere else. But I decided to stay because I love the city. And I've just seen a total decline of... I don't even know. It's not even so much pride, but it's like...
I think there's definitely been like a lot of increased like pessimism around like New Bedford.
It's sad. It's sad. And, you know, I go to City Hall a lot. I see the average person walk in, go to the building department or go to, you know, different departments, ZBA or whatever, planning department, and I see the stress in their face.
Yeah.
And I see the confusion in their face. And they're scared, and they get fines, and, you know, it's sad. You know, the City Hall shouldn't be there. You know, people, unfortunately, some people in City Hall take it as us against them, and it shouldn't be there. Yeah, you work for the people.
Right.
And you should be there to help people along, to solve their problems, you know, and not be a hindrance and to be helpful. You know, there's laws to be abide to, and, you know, and everybody should be no favors and none of that, but... You know, there's plenty of opportunities to help people, and I just don't see it.
So you think like...
And unfortunately, you know what it is? Everybody's looking over their shoulders nowadays.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid to lose their job doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So they don't want to go above and beyond. And that's, you know, that's not the New Bedford I knew.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the New Bedford I grew up in. And it's just sad, and I don't see it changing. I just don't see it changing because everybody is afraid. You know, and I have people in the trades. Just recently, I had to get engineers to come do some work here. I had 3 engineers, not 1, not 2, 3 engineers that refused to work in the city of New Bedford.
3? Wow.
3 engineers that refused to work in the city of New Bedford.
It's terrible.
And I can guarantee you, there's a lot of people listen to this conversation. They say only 3?
Yeah, right.
I can guarantee you, there's a lot of people in the building trades and whatever, they do not want to work in the city.
Right.
And it's sad. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why? And I repeated myself, you know, I talked to you yesterday. I mean, why is it you go to Fall River, and all you see is construction. You got downtown buildings being converted and this and that. Why?
Yeah. You
go Route 79, now it's going to be no more Route 79. In about 5 years, all you're going to see is apartment complexes on the I don't even know the right side of 79 as you're going into Somerset, and you know, by the T station there. That's all you're going to see are apartments. There's like about 4 to 5 apartment complexes in the works. I
saw a brand new one fairly recently. Right?
Yeah,
looked really nice.
You got Tony Cordero, which is the owns an insurance company out there. I've known him for many years. Him and his partners are just gobbling up these little buildings downtown and all over the place, and they just convert them into apartments.
Right.
But, you know, they convert them because they can do it fast. Development needs to get done in a timely fashion. You can't be holding off on these things for months and months, if not years, to try to get approved.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. Prices go up. You got bank commitments and this and that, and it just seems, unfortunately, the city of New Bedford, there's certain individuals that don't get that.
Right.
I don't know if it's control or if that doesn't meet their vision. That's for them to debate, not me. But it's just sad. It's just sad what's going on. I see people hurting every day. I feel for these people. I mean, using my people, I can say to my people because, I rent to these people and I see the struggle, and whatever. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. But
I appreciate it.
All right.
Well, I think before I let you go, what you're saying is basically like. Obviously, zoning changes, but the permitting process right now is too complicated.
Very, very difficult, unfortunately. Yeah. But again, it's not one individual. It's not whatever. It's just the whole process. Everybody, the city, certain city officials might come on. Yeah, we're going to expedite permit process.
Yeah.
Jesus, if this is what they call expedite, I want you to go tomorrow and get an application to convert a storefront into an apartment or something. You need to go to Harvard to fill out that paperwork.
Yeah.
You basically got to write a thesis on every possibility of what you're going to do to that neighborhood, and it's not just like, hey, show me some plans. Talk about it, this and that. I mean, literally, it's like a 20-page report of all this different stuff that you have to do, and it's just for the average person. They're like, well, it's not worth it. It's like, what the hell is this?
Right.
It's very difficult to do stuff. And I don't know. I just don't see it getting better. I really don't see it getting better.
Well, all I can say is, I hope it does. I mean, the thing is...
Me too. Because, I mean, I'm in this business. There's plenty for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And who wants to see people struggle? When people are happy, it just makes life better for everybody. And to see people miserable all the time because they don't, I have people coming up to me and they're like, John, I can't pay my rent this month and this and that. And I'm like, all right, let's work it out and this and that.
Hey. Can you can you give me a call? I gotta take this. I got these two breaks I gotta take. So you can give me. Please call back like in the future. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye. All right, I got a couple commercial breaks I got to take.
1420 WBSM, where freedom of speech lives. Have your voice heard right now on South Coast Tonight. Call 508-996-0500 or send an app chat message on the WBSM app. Now, back to Chris and Marcus.
Welcome back. I mean, it's something I've heard quite a bit, honestly, that the and I think it's true, the process has to be a bit more developer friendly in New Bedford. I think in Fairhaven too. I've gotten calls on that as well. It's the building department is in a difficult situation right now. So yeah, that all does inhibit the, development of inhibit necessary developments that would ameliorate this housing situation for sure. All right, I got to take another break. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. And we'll stick your app chat messages. Thanks. Welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can join us this evening if you want to make any closing comments on, all of that we're talking about. Again, tomorrow, you're going to want to tune in, especially if you're in the 7 o'clock hour. We've got Lynn Turner. She's a candidate for school committee in Dartmouth. Obviously, that was a big issue that we followed last year, and it's, I think, sort of made a little bit of a comeback, is the Dartmouth Indian discussion, whether or not they keep the Indian mascot. And that was, a lot of that was the sounding board of that issue was on the school committee. So it's an issue that we're following, and there's a lot of people out there in the audience from Dartmouth that want to know more about their candidates for office, and we'll do that with Dartmouth and Fairhaven, whomever wants to join us, because the town elections are important. Obviously, we're following the city elections and our state elections as well. So we're going to continue all that conversation in the coming weeks. So 508-996-0500. And we'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. We're working on some other guests, but again, Lieutenant Governor will be on Thursday. So Thursday at 8, you'll want to catch that for sure. You'll want to catch Lieutenant Governor Driscoll. She's going to talk specifically about housing. We're talking about housing and how the Healy administration is going to, going to help communities like the South Coast on issues like housing, what they're going to do to improve the housing stock and affordability here and everywhere to make it a little bit more tenable. So, that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for calling in. And I will see you with Chris McCarthy tomorrow. So that's all I got for tonight. Thanks to Paul Chase for coming in. Thanks to everybody who called in. Thanks to everybody.